open the meeting at 8:05 a.m. Any adjustments to the agenda, Joe?
None, Madam Chair, except that this is on the agenda, the comp plan review is on the agenda. I was gonna say it wasn't, but it is.
Okay.
No adjustments.
Shelley did, I don't think you'll have them in front of you, Laura and Chris, I'm not sure, but we do have the minutes to the meeting. Did you submit those to them?
Yes, we have those.
Okay,
I emailed
there you go. Okay, terrific.
I think I got your two, Chris, right? Did I send those to you?
Chris,
Okay, hang on,
you're
I
on
can hear
mute.
All right, there we go. We'll say yes.
Okay.
So review and approve meeting minutes, November 14th, 2022.
I make a recommendation to accept the meetings from November 14th, 2022 without any changes.
I second. Are there any comments, questions? All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay. The meeting minutes for January 23rd, 2023.
I make a motion to accept the minutes from January 3rd, 2023 without any changes.
Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no public on our meeting that I can see. Correspondence, any new correspondence, Joe?
No.
Broadband update. On our last meeting, we asked Joe to reach out to Consolidated to check on the update of the project. From reading the email response back, it looks like the end of this month, which is tomorrow. They should be in good shape for the groundwork. Is that how you read that?
It says the construction team is telling him that they will be complete with the build by the end of the month, with the exception of the underground. They'll need to finish that in the spring when the weather cooperates. So the underground will be frozen right now.
Right, so the underground is for underground subdivisions. That exact is what I'm thinking, right? So it's not the entire project, it's
Correct.
just specific areas of the town will not have access till the spring.
Correct.
So I guess that means that if the hardwire is done, then it's up to them to get all the circuits internally in Consolidated to be able to turn people on. Has anybody gotten any indication from them, from Fidium, that they're ready to go?
No,
So right now, I don't know, have you been kept abroad of the rest of all that, where they're doing the whole high-speed fiber to every house? They've reached out to certain groups where you can pre-register, and then it says in 2 weeks, that we keep getting the 2-week notice. But I don't think I've never heard of anybody actually being able to get on it yet, so that's our next step. Do you have any thoughts, Laura, on what we should do?
yeah, the only thing I would say is, I mean, I'm sure it is happening really soon. They're doing their best to do it, but not that I want to react to social media, but I still almost on a daily basis see someone asking, does anyone know what's happening with the fiber? And I really think it would be helpful if we understood what their communication plan is. You know, are they going to communicate at all when they start or what? And I know it's hard for them to put a date, but they got to put something out there, because it literally, someone asks every day.
I agree. I think that's a wise thing to do. I just don't know, from your experience, will they do it?
It's hard to say, you know, if they don't have a date, they probably are not willing to say for certain publicly, and then we can ask, I guess.
I would say we should ask them, because even at the least, are they going to communicate when they're doing it? I could see the way it's been going, that they're just going to start doing it and no one's even going to know. So at the least, I would like to understand what their communication plan is. And I would tell them that that there's all sorts of rumor mills going around, and we would like to get as much information out as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's making them look bad.
Right, and one thing I would add is that when they were meeting with us prior to this winter, they were letting us know that the project would be complete late summer.
Right.
So I just kind of want to throw that into the mix. Now, I don't know what they're doing with the marketing. I don't get those emails for, I haven't tried to subscribe for it. So I guess it sounds like they're sending emails to folks saying it'll be a couple weeks. So I guess that's the conflicting information that we're concerned about.
Well, the problem with Consolidated is that over the years, they have never communicated. They always say they have a communication plan, even when I can't even think of his name now, who started this whole process, Laura, with us, but he said they would put things out, and I'm like, well, where? Where are they putting it out? Are they putting a flyer in a mailbox, or a offering? So every time you would call, you would get a different answer as whether you could get service or not, or what speed of service you could get. So it's a big project. They got a grant. It's pretty exciting. Everybody's seeing the activity. They're probably seeing the slowdown of activity. So it does make sense to have them put something out, maybe in the local paper or something that, they're excited that the project's close to completion.
Yeah, and Joe, I'm not concerned with the fact that it's not done. I'm concerned with the fact that they're not telling us anything. I'm fine if they said it's gonna be done the end of the year. I just think what looks bad is that they're not saying anything, and they got five Joe Schmoes around town putting something on Facebook about when it's gonna happen.
Okay.
And meanwhile, putting their comments about how Consolidated was so bad.
Yeah.
So,
And I don't know if you know or not, but they're doing it in Farmington too.
yes, yep.
Yeah. I don't know what other towns that they're doing, and I don't know, maybe they can't turn everything on until the underground stuff's done.
No, they.
That's not what they
specifically
usually
told
do.
us. Yeah, no, they can do it
Alright.
earlier.
They actually said they could do it in phases by hubs, because they had to create like six different hubs here, and that they could do it when they got the hubs. What happened the last time they did a major upgrade was they got everything installed, the physical wire, but then in the background, they have to get all their processing and circuits done in the headquarters or wherever they weave that all from. And then they can start turning people on. But the fiber has to go from the house there's still an install process, right, to every home. There's still equipment that I believe they'll have to install to every home to be able to have this going. So that might be part of the slowdown, Joe, I don't know. All right, so you're gonna reach out okay, perfect. So Joe will reach out. We've been going through our comp plan from before, and we went through almost all of it. We went through all of it. So is there anything specific, Joe, that you need us to do to go through the comp plan?
Well, if you're comfortable, if the committee's comfortable with this document, I'm comfortable bringing it to the board of selectmen. You should, if you are comfortable, you should make a motion to that effect. The review is complete, and we'd like to submit it to the board of selectmen.
Yeah, just to give a little history on this, the comp plan, I believe, we talked about that, is coming up for its term. They're looking at the comp plan. The downtown plan is also a few years old. But when we put together the original comprehensive plan had a lot to do with the formation of this group. And we just want to make sure we're still meeting the objectives of what the comprehensive plan had a vision for. What it asked for was the working of the town government, the town of Rangeley, the Chamber of Commerce, and the formation of this committee to focus on a group-wide, region-wide focus on economic development and for all of us. So Laura, do you want to make a motion, or should I?
Sure, is there any questions from anyone else, or?
So I have a quick question, which is beyond the scope of the Economic Development Committee. It's a quick question for Joe. The does the comp plan also set spending priorities for the town for the future?
In certain areas, yes, it will talk about capital equipment. It's not at length. As I recall, there's a page maybe two of, foreseeable capital expenditures. But it doesn't, I don't think it gets a lot more detail than that.
Right. I'm thinking about fire and rescue. This is, as I said, beyond the scope of the committee here, but it's we're almost certainly going to have to put fire and rescue in up at the mountain, which will affect the town and the plantations. So I'm happy to do that offline with you later.
Sure.
Thanks. Sorry, Laura, that was it for me.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the edits that we made to the comp plan and have it ready to submit to Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, we're getting through this quickly. So we still have the Board of Selectmen workshop discussion points on here. The purpose of that is to make sure that our committee and the Board of Selectmen are on the same page of our focus areas of what we're working on. There's some bigger projects that are still in the works and funding. We still have the TIF that we have accumulated. Right now, I think we're at $60,000 approximately in the TIF fund. They're working on how they're going to utilize that and how they're going to spend the money. There's projects in downtown Aquasic. There's still the bigger project in Rangeley still to be done would be the downtown sidewalks and the potential of the bearing of the line still and that whole redesign. That's been in process for a long time. There's other projects as well, but those were the two major ones that we've been looking at on a long-term basis. And the third, and probably we would argue right now the most important too, is how we can help assist for attainable housing and workforce housing. So we have not scheduled that workshop. It keeps getting postponed. And it's something that we should probably spend a little bit more time on before we schedule that workshop. Or decide if we're not going to schedule that workshop. It would probably be an hour before a selectmen's meeting where we'd have a public meeting. Is that how that would work? Yeah. Any comments or suggestions or thoughts on this? Okay.
Just a quick question. Has the group put in any, have they submitted any plans as opposed to, I know the project with John Wasilewski is still on the burner, but I know that from the John Wasilewski side. Is there anything more formal than they're working on it?
From the town's point of view on attainable housing?
Yeah, from the
No.
town's point of view.
No, we're continuing to answer questions from that group and help them with information that they need as they begin to look at the permitting process.
Yeah.
We have not discussed any further how the town might assist that group or others with funding or assistance with funding on grant applications. So that hasn't grown any legs yet.
Okay.
In
Thanks.
our last conversation last week, we talked about if we could find somebody who could spearhead like a group to really, or hire even somebody who could spearhead a focus area on attainable housing. it would be a positive idea, you know, so. But that, we would have to find the right person, like, we have money for consulting,
Right.
Chris, and we do have some money that could help us there, but we really need somebody who would spearhead this project.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what the project is specifically. So, you know, if it's getting the Maine State Housing Authority grant together. I mean, John, for instance, I think used to serve on Misha. So it's probably wouldn't take much help at all, but again, it depends on what the it is that everyone's interested in.
I think that's what our thought is, that we don't know what the it is, and we need someone to like
Oh, right.
take a look at it overall and determine what is the it.
All right.
We also think it could be completely, outside of the box of, the town's not gonna, you know, build a housing unit, right? So, how do we assist or help the community as a whole work to the same goal, right? So it might be a completely outside of the box, not us, you know, it's a community, right now our community's already doing it, right? There's certain pockets of people who are doing this and creating housing for their workers. And how maybe we can work together and make this attainable for everybody. And how much more growth do we need? Like, how many more units do we need to house people? And what does that mean? Is it 3 months, 6 months, you know, at a time, a block, or is it a bunch of business owners going in together? But if we could have, it tends to work best in this community when there's a group of people who are focused on the same goal and really run with it.
For
And
sure.
now I see a lot of pockets doing it, but maybe not as a coordinated effort.
Right.
So any thoughts there, Chris? On
My thought is I want to think about that a little bit and try and get my head around. I mean, I see several ways forward, but I need to think about it, and I'm happy to sort of circulate some ideas to the group by email. There are ways that the town can facilitate it, but I part of it is well, let me just, I'm not going to talk and ramble at length. Let me think about it and get back to everyone.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, is there any? Yeah.
So Chris, I've been talking to the Kingfield group. It's Kingfield, it's made up of Eustis, Copeland Plantation. They're the Western Maine, Carabassa Valley too. It's Western Maine Coalition.
Yep.
And they have gone to the county and asked for, and they received, I think, 320,000 from their ARPA funds. So they are like a year, almost a year and a half ahead of us. They're just starting with their mission statement and things like that. They've done a survey to find out exactly, this is the medium in each town of what people make, and this is the mortgage they can afford. It's,
Right.
I mean, granted, it's totally old stuff now because the rates have increased that much, but
Yep.
it's like a 50-page report that I'm trying to thumb through to get through to see. And they are really actively, they've got an attorney from Portland, that's a part of the Carabassa community. It's made up of business owners. There's a representative from each town and plantation and things. So they're along the same lines where they've created a 501c. They already have one lot that they have under contract in Kingfield. And then they're also looking at another 2 lots possibly to buy in Carabassa Valley. So they, and their minutes are very detailed. And John's like, I can't believe you've looked this much into it. I'm like, no, this is something that really is interesting. This is something that people need. And a lot of them are business owners and people that are part of the community, and they're all coming together to make it happen. So
That's fantastic. And so they started off with a market study, is what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
Well, didn't we have that market study?
Mhm.
So we
no,
do,
that's not as detailed as their market study, it's like 50 some odd pages, and it's only for their towns. We only got like a short, it wasn't anything detailed that we got from ours, from the agency that's coming here.
Shall we
Um,
build small homes or apartment buildings?
So they've got a mixture of both, they're looking at both, now what they're doing, as they've purchased the land, they're going to the planning boards and working with them. And they actually have a member of the planning board for Carabasset that is part of their committee, so they have the knowledges all around to be able to hopefully make it happen faster.
Did you see in Southern Maine, the small homes that were being built it was adorable. I can't remember what town it was in. It was in like the York. Or, did anyone see that on?
Yes, I
on the
saw
news?
something like that, yeah.
I was like, that is what, instead of apartment buildings, small
Right.
homes that people can buy. And then if they leave the area, they have to sell it back. There's some criteria, where they can't cash
Right.
out and, yeah,
Right.
it was interesting.
Yeah.
That's-
Manage first refusal on that, so.
Yeah, that's a great model. And sounds a little bit better than the Habitat for Humanity model, which is similar, but has a little bit more punitive. Could you shoot me that report when you have a moment?
Yeah.
Thanks.
okay. Any other conversation on that topic? All right, so the short-term rental ordinance, we discussed this last week. And we felt from last week's meeting, at least I did and Nora, I believe, that we should make a recommendation or have an opinion on this to the select board. Next week is the selectmen's meeting where they're going through the ordinance again. They may or may not make a decision at that point in time to move forward with putting the ordinance on the June vote. So the concerns that I had were, this ordinance looks restrictive. It also seems to cover the same ordinances that we already have in place for some of the, what issue are we trying to solve with this ordinance that we're trying to work through, and can we do it without putting an ordinance in place? So a lot of it is a combination of the ordinances we already have, like noise, so forth and so on. So, and how does the word get out that these people have to register, and how do we also police this? What is the town's responsibility? So if we're having a hard time actually policing the ordinances we have in place now, what does this do to make anything different with creating an additional ordinance? Some of the other, how does a homeowner know that they're gonna have to do this and register? And when I was reading it since then in a little more detail, the 24-hour response from a local contractor. Well, I can't get a 24-hour response from anybody. How many local contractors do we have? Right, so that, to me, that seems like an unreasonable request for that.
Just to clarify, that's a local contact, not a local contractor.
Well, it's a local contact, exactly. But it's somebody who can go and fix whatever issue that is foreseen to be happening at that property, whether it's a garbage bag left outside on the street or whatever. We also talked about the fact that there's ways to gather a lot of the data that's, that this would be a helpful ordinance for, like how many units we have between Airbnb and some of our state tax data. You should be able to determine what the revenues are and where that money's coming and what the growth ratio is, et cetera, et cetera. So we're wondering about the purpose of a registration when we can already find that data. It's just finding the data. So so we're an economic development group. We're trying to enhance the ability to work and live in Rangeley, be a second homeowner in Rangeley. That's a big reason why we did broadband. We focused on broadband so heavily because you could not live and work here without high-speed internet. So we worked really hard on that, where people might come and have it be able to work remotely from their homes here, at least part of the year. And so this is part of that, you know, is this the impression we want to send? At least that's my focus on this ordinance. I'm not sure what this ordinance does to help us as a community. So I thought we'd have a little conversation about it. I know it is to try to be good neighbors, because our tourism businesses are majority of our business. And we are trying to have our tourists be as good of neighbors as hopefully our homeowners are. So year round. So I'll let it open to discussion if anybody wants to make a comment or a thought on the short-term ordinance, rental ordinance.
So I have
Yeah.
I have a lot to say, and I'm gonna try to keep this very short. This was my biggest mistake of 2022, was getting involved in this, and I'll tell you why. I saw, and I was, I hope, a big part of pulling us all together, our community for COVID. Okay, I thought we all had different opinions on it. There were people turning against each other, and I thought, let's all come together. And I think we were an example during COVID, and I'm proud of how we were at that time. This was a reaction to a social media post about a year ago. And it was created by people that love our community as much as any other person that I know. I spearheaded it. And it was in response to people attacking short-term rentals. That's what it was. And I sympathized with neighbors, and I thought I could bring us all together. It was I cannot say again how much this was a mistake, because that's it is not what it has done. There are flaws in the document. I mean, that a lot of the data that when I went to the first couple meetings was totally inaccurate. So I brought data that was more accurate. It's not perfect. You know, someone said 1,000 vacation rentals in Rangeley. There are under 200. There could be under 180. No one knows. The data that I believe that you're working off of is something that I gave you. And then it has snowballed. I mean, competitors to short-term rentals have now jumped on the bandwagon. And because they feel we're a threat to them. I feel like our community needs us all. There should be no fee. I said that from the beginning. There's fee language in here. No, that to me is it's so wrong. I've kept since Christmas week all of the comment cards from all of my guests, all the different places they have gone to eat, they have patronized. It is families for the most part coming up here and recreating. And now there are community members that are saying, well, now we need caps. Now we're, there's too many short-term rentals. Now the dwelling count that the town has is not even accurate. I drive by Fieldstone Cottages. They have 1 or 2 dwellings there. There's 8. All 8 of those are on Airbnb. So there's a few different issues I have. First of all, the town doesn't even have the correct data. Please table this. I will help. Other people will help that care about our community. And let's actually put something together that makes sense for all. But no one, I'm honest, I feel like no one's listening. I actually haven't talked to Shelley directly, but I've talked to everybody else. Mm-hmm. And I feel as you guys know, I'm not involved in politics. I try to make our community the best it can be. And this has been the worst experience, because I feel like my group and I tried to do something to bring us all together. And then people with all of these personal interests, and I know I have them too. So someone said, well, you have a personal interest in it too. Okay, yes, I do. I'm not sure how, I can't say, yes, of course I do. You know what I mean? But it has been, it's not ready. It's not ready. And people on all sides are getting angry and saying awful things about other people. And it's been, I would ask you guys to please not support this. It is not ready. It is, this is what I was told by another selectman. Well, our community needs this. I'm like, really? Does our community need this? It was a reaction by myself to negative posts on social media. And looking back, I didn't even know half the people that were agreeing with all these negative posts. I thought that to myself. I'm like, okay, Beth, you've been here. I'm not saying I know everybody, but I didn't know half the people. They could have been commenting from California, for goodness sake. So anyway, I would like it stopped. I would be part of, and I agree. I think it can be an organization. I think that someone said, even though I don't agree with some of the attacking by some of the people that have been going after the people that truly meant well to do this, I agree with some of what they're saying. We already have a noise ordinance. Let's enforce it. Don't we have a leash law? Let's enforce it. In one of the ordinance committee meetings I was sitting at, the video goes off, and one of the women on the ordinance committee said, well, you know, short-term rentals are my competition. It's like a small B&B. I'm thinking to myself, that is that why you're sitting on this committee? So I'm just being honest with you guys. I am not voting for it. I don't support this. I think that we do need to work together. I live next to a large vacation rental, and I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not. And I think that we can promote being good neighbors in a different way. And I'm willing to be part of that solution. But I would ask that our committee not support this document for many different reasons. It is flawed. It is flawed. It is flawed. It is flawed. And we threw it together right a year ago before February vacation week, when we were all working. The people on this Good Neighbor Coalition were probably working all 7 days a week. I'm not even kidding you. We threw it together. And we did it because, I'm not even kidding, the intent was pure. I thought we could bring everyone together like we did during Rangeley Rises in COVID, and it has been the opposite. So anyway, there's my spiel. And I would ask that this committee seriously consider taking a stand, because now I'm gonna have to, unfortunately, and I hate negativity. But it is not ready, and this is not what I believe our community wants. So I think we should be the first to say, hey, people make mistakes. This is the thing, in my business, we can make mistakes. I made a mistake a year ago throwing this together. And I would ask that you guys, because like you said, Kate, the fees, the contact people. I mean, I just assumed people attacked me thinking that I wanted more business, John being one of them, which is fine. And but the truth is, I just assumed everyone had a private cleaner or a caretaker that could respond to trash. It was not about dividing us. It was about all living here peacefully and anyway, all enjoying Rangeley. So there's my spiel. So if you guys have any questions.
We do have a member of the public who has joined us, so that's great.
Okay,
You
I don't know you. I saw on the internet that your name was Kate. And,
Yeah. That's right. My name's Kate Williamson.
and my name's John Sanazaro, and
Actually, can we hold off? Can we let the committee go for a second? Can we let
Sure, yes, go ahead.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to introduce that we did have a member of the
I
public. here.
appreciate that. Thanks, because I don't have any cameras seeing you.
Yeah, our video is down, by the way, so they're not able to see us at the moment.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So Beth, I actually really appreciate what you're saying, and I came to sort of a very similar conclusion via a slightly different route, but to the same end. Because to me, this proposed ordinance is neither pro nor anti-business. I don't see that it hurts or helps economic development in one way or the other. And so to that extent, I'm not entirely sure that we have much, from that angle, I'm not sure it's I think it's a wash, honestly. But I also think that, it's trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. It's trying to pound a nail with a watermelon. And it just is not, if there's a problem to be addressed, there are other ways to, as stated in the ordinance, there are existing ways to do it. If there are other issues that have to do with growth, the proposed ordinance is not the way to deal with it. And so I'm with you, and you've said it better, and we should probably condense that to a page and ask that they withdraw it, just that they not vote it up or down, but suggest that they withdraw it for further consideration. That's the totality of what I have to say about it.
Laura, would you like that?
Oh, you're muted, Laura.
You're muted.
Yeah. First of all, I guess I want to say I'm sorry for Beth, because of anyone in this town. I know that you do everything with thoughts of just improving this town and making everyone work together. And I'm so sorry it's been created havoc for you. But just to comment on, I think I disagree with Chris on that it doesn't have a business impact, because just from being a past business owner, I feel like we want it, that this town needs to be promoted for tourist reasons. And I think short-term rentals are one of the biggest draws to towns. I mean, when I'm thinking of going somewhere, I look and see, oh, are there any Airbnbs that I can stay there, where I can stay? And if we are limiting that, then it impacts the tourism in the town. That would be my only comment on it. And then other than that, I agree with Beth's comment as well as Kate's comments. And whether we say we table it or whether we say we disagree with the whole thing, I'd have to think about that.
So Laura, the reason I say it doesn't, so I didn't go through my list of questions because I thought Beth did a really outstanding job on that, and it wasn't necessary. But as I read and reread the ordinance, and I attended one of the town meetings, workshops on it, the only additional requirement that I can see, additional to existing ordinances, is that they have to, tell the town that they're doing it, and they have to designate a local contact name. I don't see that changes the supply in any way. And I just was like, I don't, and it says, and you have to follow all the other existing ordinances, which by the way, you have to anyway, right? I mean, and then I was like, and then I had questions for Joe. We'll skip, like, is there any hard data about, people violating the noise ordinance? And is it different for short-term rentals versus long-term rentals versus people who live here seasonally versus year-round? And there's no hard data to support that. There was one case where I suspect there were people who were overserved in a restaurant, which turned into a big hullabaloo. And I'm like, I don't see the data that supports anything here. And so there may be good reasons to do some things, but I don't see the data for it. And I don't see that this addresses the supposed problem. So again, I'm like, if all you have to do is supply a local contact name and register your business, which already you had to do with the state of Maine, I'm like, I don't see it. But again, I mean, if there are people who are renting and see this as a problem, well, fine. I mean, but that was the only reason I say it doesn't change the supply.
Okay, yeah, that's valid. And that kind of goes back to, I think one of Kate's original comments was, what's the purpose other than it seems like it just adds, to be honest, it adds more onto potentially adds more onto the town, which is already having trouble policing it as it is. So what's the point?
Thank you, Chris, for clarifying. I think that what you're saying makes sense as far as the ordinance goes, and Laura with the tourism, but there's another aspect too, right? Because a part of our economic development focus wasn't just on tourism, was on that second homeowner and different utilizations. And sometimes that isn't as clean as it's only for short-term rentals, right? Sometimes that's as clean as we can afford to own a second home because we rent it 2 weeks a year, you know, or we have these other aspects. So the way that Rangeley can be a 12-month-a-year business, support our workers and our families in 12 months of the year, is to build some of those off shoulders and have people utilize those homes. Because they used to sit empty. And when they sat empty, we closed. That's how we handled that. We didn't have business. So as an economic driver, the ability for people to have a flexibility of renting their homes as well as utilizing their homes for their own pleasure or working out of their homes for certain parts of the year are all things that, I support.
Sure.
Any other comments, considerations? Okay.
I really don't think that we should be coming in when it's already past the date for the Economic Development Committee to put in as not everyone has been a part of the public meetings to actually see what has progressed. Started with a letter, could have been a petition. And it could have gotten voted on where somebody created it themselves. So that's
Started
the
with a letter
dangerous
from-
part.
I know.
And,
From us.
and when it started with a good intent and unfortunately got blown way out of proportion from the thing is, growing up in this town, there's always a little bit of truth in every rumor. It gets blown out of proportion. And I think we're forgetting what the original intent was. The letter was brought forward, and then, so what happens? The ordinance committee gets together, the selectmen ask the ordinance committee to get together to work on a short-term rental ordinance. Then we pulled from other towns. Boy, you know, we're not the only one looking at doing it, that have high tourism and high second home owners. And so that's where the base came from for the ordinance. And we've gotten to the point where it's now illegal. This is where it's costing money. And legal, I want to see what legal has to say about the whole thing. Yes, there's a lot of repetition in it that says for ordinance that we already have. It's just to bring those in light to say, don't forget that. But like I said, I don't know what the liability part is. I'm really anxious to see what the attorney has. I'm not for a fee to add to it unless and when the state comes up with their system, because the state legislature are stepping in next, and then we're not gonna have any control at all of what happens. And we do have to keep Rangeley, no matter what. And I understand the good neighbor thing, and you do want, and I think the registry of having the people available 24 hours, I don't think that's a lot. When my husband calls up and says, hey, your alarm's going off at your house, they answer the phone like that. So it's kind of like the same thing. When the police call you, you pick up the phone. So, and you tend to handle it. So I just think that where we weren't a part of the whole thing, I find it hard that we put in an opinion whether or not, where we haven't seen and heard all of it and all the purposes. But that's just my opinion. I'm going to abstain because I am working on it as on the other end of it. So, but I just think that it's a process. It's coming, whether it starts now or it's going in the future. You just don't want it to be a signed petition of locals that are so frustrated because nothing is being done. And then we have no control.
John?
Thank you, yeah. I have a question. There's something that's been mentioned a few times, and you just mentioned it right now, Shelley. And that is the part about the state stepping in. I haven't found anything that alludes to that. What is the state planning to do? How is this going to affect anything that the state does? And please elaborate.
So the legislature is working right now. And how big is it an issue for short-term rentals? So they're starting a process there. as we speak. They're working on it. So
What are the, I'm sorry, but what are the measures?
they're in the process of it right now. They haven't even gone to it. So other towns, other than ours, are really a lot more restricted. And I think honestly, by having the data system that we were to have in place for registering, I think that's gonna help, hopefully, for us to get more funding through the state for, this is how many short-term rentals we have. Well, if we have that many going on, this is more of an idea of how many people are coming into Rangeley, certain periods of time. So then maybe what we're looking for next is affordable employee housing, like workforce housing, that could possibly get us more funds by having that data available. And I know the state has theirs, but they don't give out all the stuff because they have the same thing I have is customer confidentiality. They're not gonna print your name of what that information is.
They have the state tax that comes in that for short-term rentals is charged to different business owners, and they're in different categories. So there will be categorized as, and I don't know, I haven't seen that data, but for a few years that before we pulled all that data, but it was, it should be in short-term, you know, a hotel, resort. They haven't broken down into groupings as you file your tax. So anybody who, the Airbnbs all have to submit those taxes, and they are by location in town. So in Rangeley, if you pulled Rangeley, and I'm not sure, I'm assuming it would be by the town of Rangeley. I don't know if it'd be the Rangeley region or Franklin County. However, it would go through what we have gained, what the growth is, and you could probably ask for the units. It wouldn't say Joe Smith paid $222 for, you know, taxes, I don't believe. Then there's ways that you could gather the data from other locations, like the Airbnb sites that already have the multiple, and some of them are, as Beth had mentioned, the data is probably wrong because they're probably represented in multiple groupings. So it could be an Airbnb rental, it could be a different kind of online rental, it could go through Beth as well. The hotels sign up for Airbnb, the resorts sign up for Airbnb, as well as maybe local rental agencies, et cetera, et cetera. So it could be represented in multiple categories. So you might be thinking, well, we have 1,000 when we really have 200. Because they're in, and that's the marketing arms that they're going through. Now, the building can only be rented to one person at one time, right? So, but I think, so there's data collection and data gathering and data analysis that needs to happen. I'm not sure of who's going to do that. It would be interesting to me, and who would be allocated in the town to analyze that data. If we're getting that registration data, what are we going to do with it? Is it sitting in a filing cabinet somewhere that says we have 200, you know, what is the purpose of that specific data? Other than to say, we have noise ordinance in this house, oh, maybe it's in our file of these 200 maybe it's a short-term rental. So that's, I think that information's out there already. I'm wondering why we're requiring an ordinance to gather the same information. And
But it would
what,
have the contact information on it, right?
well,
That's all, that's all you get. That's right, really, is just the contact information and probably the contact information. I mean, I think, Shelley, you're asking really interesting questions, and I just don't think this ordinance gets to the question. So that's why I'm thinking they're sort of two separate things. So I really appreciate your questions, and I think they're worth investigating. I just don't think the ordinance is, you know, for better or for worse. I just don't think it addresses it in any way. But they're worthwhile questions.
I thought the latest legislation was that the state was, and I could be wrong, Shelley, someone told me this week, I think, this week. That the state was talking about giving the power to the towns, to the communities, which that's why we're talking about what we're doing. That's what I thought the latest legislation was, but find out from, I'm not sure if that's true, but that is what I heard.
Right.
And then that's why I think that's why we're trying to discuss this and figure this out. The other thing is, a letter was written, and I called every person to put their name on that letter. And so I feel pretty comfortable saying it was a mistake. And so if you need the people that are on that letter, I mean, and that's fine if you want me to go back. I think mistakes are okay. And if this ordinance is costing us money currently, then let's stop spending money on something that I don't even understand that comment. And I'm just being honest, like when something, I make mistakes all the time that cost me money and it stinks, but it doesn't mean that it's right. And that's fine. I mean, I just want to be very clear, like, I think that people, the reason I'm taking this, I'm just being honest, is some people have told me they're supporting it because I was behind it. And so I am not behind this anymore, and my sister is not behind this. We support growth. We don't want jerks next door to nice neighbors that are living there. The problem is, Kate, some people liked those empty homes beside them.
Right.
And I honor that. I respect that. I understand that. But the problem is, for our community, did those empty homes pay the bills for a lot of people? Did they employ the 45, 50 people that I have now? No. I mean, this is just me personally. I have no idea. I assume my sister has double the employees she had when she had no business. I assume all of her employees are pretty much local people. And she's employing them because she's never been busier. And I assume that's not just local people, but buying her groceries, she delivers to all the restaurants. I think she's the one alcohol supplier in town, I'm not sure. So I think we have to remember that the people are working for our businesses because our businesses are busy. I mean, I have 35 housekeepers, I assume right now. I don't even know how many office employees. I used to have in the bad days, 1 or 2, and maybe 5 housekeepers. So those people won't need housing. I get it. We're talking, see, that's the other thing that's happening with short-term rentals. They're being blamed for long-term housing. Well, okay, all these people are patronizing all our businesses. That's fine. Let's shut it down. And the problem is, there are people talking about caps, and you know it. I assume you know it because I know it.
Yep, I'm not for
No,
that.
no,
I feel
I know.
like if what people want to do with their property is their business.
Yeah.
But if you are like not paying attention and it's affecting someone that actually lives there all the time.
Yes.
I don't think it's fair for that neighbor to have to deal with that because of 1-2 weeks that they're renting next door.
And I do think you guys, that I agree, because there's a group that's saying there are no issues. I think that group are they crazy? There are issues.
There are issues.
And we know that, I know that.
Yeah.
And, but I think the Good Neighbor Coalition or whatever group, I do think there's a way for us to figure this out and meet in the middle without hurting businesses and hurting people that are currently doing it right. And this document is hurting people that are currently doing it right. Some of my owners, some of the people that call their neighbors and make sure everything is fine. This document is hurting, which I didn't catch till after. And I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, all we're trying to do is have to Rangeley, I agree.
Yeah.
Like Lauren graduates in May. She wants to come back here. We want the same Rangeley also, but she's got to be able to make a living, whether she works for me or Saddleback or my sister or whatever. So anyway, I agree with you. I'm telling you, I just don't think this is the answer anymore. And because I was the original author of it, one of them.
No, you weren't even the author of it, so you shouldn't be getting the brunt of any of it. It's the ordinance committee that
Well,
started
there's-
it based on the letter, and then the ordinance committee
Yes.
went and got other ordinances with other towns in the state or cities in the state of Maine. So this isn't you, and for you to get all the crap you are, being a local, and how your
It's
heart
okay.
is, I gotta tell you, you've been at every damn soccer game, donating like so much for those kids. They had a cooler of oranges, they had a cooler of water, everything you could possibly imagine. And for you to get personally attacked, honestly,
Yes.
it bothers me to no end, because you are, I know your spirit, I know, oh my word, if you.
It's okay though. It's okay.
It is not okay.
Well, that's why I had to step away from it for like a month.
Right.
I mean, this is getting too much,
Yes.
but around Christmas time, it hurt me to the core, but that's
Right.
worse.
So It's defamation of character.
Yes, yes,
And that's what they're doing.
that's okay,
But-
but truthfully, this document, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because that's why I'm back, because I'm like, okay, I had to take a break, because it was
Right.
very hurtful.
So,
But like I said,
I know.
you
Can I
are
interrupt
not
for a
the
second?
creator. You are not
Oh,
the
can
creator.
I say one more thing though about the towns? Just one more thing, because I was just on a call this week. A lot of those towns, some of them though, Shelley, I swear to God, they're pulling them back. Because if you research it, I promise, like, I'm not just making all this
No,
up.
that's okay.
I was on a call last week, for the vacation rental professionals of Maine, or New England or something.
Mhm.
And so what's starting to happen is they're seeing the flaws. Some of these were pushed like a year ago through, I think, or a year and a half ago, because COVID exploded with, all these short-term rentals. And now lawyers are getting involved, and some of these I think are they're being pulled back. So we just have to be careful of that too. That's all. But, yeah. Okay.
so we started this meeting with the purpose of the economic development team that was developed through the comp plan for the tourism and the town ordinances and the planning, and to all work together as a team and support. So I do believe that the Economic Development Committee does have the obligation, or at least that we can have our input heard as to whether we think this, the selectmen should go forward or not. So I think that is the purpose of the economic, because we're an advisory group. We are not lawmakers here, the selectmen are. And we advise whether we think it's interesting to work on broadband and spend tons of hours on getting high-speed internet into this community. We advise it whether we need workforce housing. And I think we can advise on an ordinance. So in my opinion, I think it is our right and our ability to make a recommendation or have a comment to the town, the ordinance committee, and to the town selectmen as to what our general feeling is. And so I guess I do.
So I guess, if for the ordinance itself, so what part of it is, so we can get some kind of registration at least by it, like what would you pick apart in the ordinance? Because if we're just saying, oh, we disagree with the whole thing, you're not like offering a solution. Ever there's a problem, there's always gonna
So
be a
there's, so
solution.
I agree that if the solution is for registration and how we understand, or how do we understand who our community members are,
Mhm.
maybe there's a different way to go about that than to legislate it and ask for a community support sign up registration. I mean, or maybe we do legislate it, but maybe if the ordinance is not correct, is overreaching, which I believe it is,
Yeah.
then we regroup and redo it, put together an ordinance that isn't overreaching, like. But what is the registration purpose for, and is there a way that we can do that? Is there somebody who's a representative of the town who can reach out and create that? They would have to if there was a physical ordinance in place. So if the one thing we want to do is know what those numbers are and how do we collect and analyze that data, that's a totally different thing. That can be a community group that does that. That could be our group that does that. That could be that's a conversation we should have with the interested parties on how do we do that. And, we're talking just downtown Rangeley. We're not talking Rangeley region, right? So it's not solving the communities, the whole region. It's only talking about one specific acreage in our community, right? So.
And we can get all of the addresses, and then we just look at tax maps, right?
No, because I don't think they all have the correct, I mean, I know they don't even have the correct names on some of them.
So then
I mean,
Well, a lot of
phone
I think we
numbers
could
and stuff
figure-
like
yeah,
that, you
phone-
don't
yeah.
have any of that stuff. And that's the stuff that it was originally.
So are you saying our
yeah.
911 data is incorrect?
In some cases, yeah.
So that's a different issue, right?
Mhm.
That's how do we fix the 911 data?
Yeah, because like when I
Mhm.
I have to give, every year, I at the bank have to give out, okay, so if my alarms go off, you gotta call this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. So we have to respond, if not, the cops are coming, but the cops can't get in unless somebody from the bank's unlocking the door. So, I mean, I look at it kind of like that type of registration. So if something happens, I mean, I want people to be able to you know,
So that's a 911 conversation, Joe.
Right. but I'm just saying,
That
like,
would be your
it's along the
department,
same,
right?
it's
The
along the
police?
same lines, I mean,
We don't keep telephone numbers here at the town office. We don't have that information.
So when the police get called to an address, you don't know who the homeowner is?
We don't keep telephone numbers on file in the town. We do have tax maps.
mhm,
We do have the most current owner of records mailing address,
right,
but we don't keep telephone numbers. So I think your question is what happens when someone calls 911? That's an IMC program that is run by the county. That
Those are
software,
dispatch.
yeah, so the dispatch handles all that stuff. Most, I say this off the cuff, a large amount of landowner information we do not have an associated telephone number with that. There are ways sometimes we can get that, but it's not always reliable. One of the ways is could be hunting license or something like that, but that's not reliable. And that would probably only be done in certain situations.
So that representation is kind of a representation then for every citizen.
what's that?
How to get the right contact place. info
Right,
for
that's
the
what, I
right
mean,
house.
that, to me, that's what the registration would be for, is to
But
get
you're
the
talking
right
about a subset,
people.
I mean. Like I keep mentioning my neighbor who shows up 2 weeks of the year and throws a party and the bottle rockets are coming over. I mean, I know they're doing it, I know they're great, but it's their house.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're not renting it. I mean, you could be my house, I could throw a party and be a jerk neighbor for a week, right, who's, when they call. You're
Right.
pinpointing a problem to a specific group, which it could be a problem or something that we want to address as a larger group if that's the issue.
And
So,
it's so funny because I do think it's such a small percentage that's a problem. But, like, let's say there's 180, I'm not sure, please, I don't know for sure. But there could be 1 or 2 bad offenders, there could be 1 or 2 people that are, because most neighbors care about their neighbors. I mean,
Yeah.
most do, don't you? Like,
Yeah,
in
I do
Rangeley?
agree.
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to figure out is, how do we figure it out for the poor neighbor next to that 1 or 2? And I don't know what the solution is. I really don't. I don't think it's this. But I agree with you, Shelley, because those people are making all of us look bad too, because that's what, what I do or whatever, but. And it's not perfect. I have some neighbors that live next to short-term rentals that are totally unreasonable and not nice themselves, you know what I mean, to this nice families coming in. So it goes both ways. I don't know.
so, so the purpose of this conversation is to come up with something that we can submit to the selectmen to add our voice to your decision-making as a town legislation group. I think we've talked it through. Is there anything else, Laura or Chris, you would like to add?
No, I guess my question is on what the motion's going to be, because I hear somewhat of a diversity of approaches here.
So my original thought was that we recommend that the selectmen do not table the vote or do not vote on the ordinance. I think it would be table that we would not want them to adapt this ordinance.
Laura, I see you've unmuted too.
Yeah, I would just, I would make a motion that we as an economic committee feel that these should be tabled at the time and that a group should be formed to look at it to determine the best course of action. And I believe that Beth even said that she'd be willing to work on that in that group.
That's brave.
It
Did you really say that, Beth?
It would be good if it was a town. The only thing I'd like to add, Laura, because over the last 2 months, is if you want good people to serve on it, I think it needs to be town directed and town appointed. Because, or nothing will get done.
Right. So a
Because
town
people
appointed group.
Yeah, because the good people won't show up if they're attacked at the first meeting.
Yep.
Being honest. Because I would like some, I do think I think we could make a big difference. But if you want the people, yeah, the right people to show up. And like a selectman, you know, I think that could be pretty awesome, honestly, and we could be an example for other towns. Because other towns, from what I have read, holy, it's all fighting and it's all, anyway, we could be an example.
They're thick, ordinances.
What?
They're a lot thicker
Yeah.
ordinances.
So Lori, you wanna try to word a motion? You were doing a good job.
Why don't you just add the town appointed committee to further investigate? Hopefully someone took down what I first said, because I have no idea now.
We don't even have full boards now. That's the problem. I mean, but we don't even have a budget committee. We need a budget committee, people.
But that's my personal, yeah, we need a budget. But not a lot of people want to participate.
No,
That's the
I
problem.
get it.
Yeah.
God love you, Shelley.
You can say you want to create a group. Look at us, perfect example.
We've had people come and go and
Right, but we've also gotten some things done and then, but doing something,
It could be this committee.
it could be this committee. I don't know, Laura.
I'm telling you, this is a.
I mean, we're an advisory committee, but that would be an advisory committee to the board, to the select board. Right?
Yeah, but I
Sometimes
guess, Shelley, the only thing I would say is that because you're scared you're not gonna get people to look at it is not a reason to keep the ordinance as it is.
The other thing is data is
Yeah,
no good,
that-
nobody looks at it. So you can collect all the data you want. If it sits in a pile on a shelf in the middle of nowhere, does you no good, right? It's not helping you, so, what's the data for? What's the purpose? I mean, those things should be defined. What's the reason? How does this help? How does this hurt? Does it help get the right support people to the right place at the right time? You know, those things are.
Yeah, and Kate, I actually agree with you because as you probably know, I'm a data geek and I love this stuff. But I think that's probably part of a narrative recommendation that goes back to the town, which is, you know, perhaps suggesting a refinement of the question that the ordinance is trying to address, because I think that's been an undercurrent in the entire conversation. And so that, you know, when we talk about recommending that they not go forward, we recommend they not go forward and pause to reconsider the question as well as the solution, if people think that's worthwhile.
I like that.
Okay, so let's try to actually put something in writing for this motion. So that's start to finish. What do you have so far, Shelley?
I have crossed out a lot. First I
Okay.
said to table or to adopt at this time, group to determine, and then I said town appointed, then I crossed that out. So,
Yes, John, would you like to
start
start?
from scratch. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Chris.
I'm sorry, John, would like to say something, and we'll give him a minute to do that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'll be brief. At least that's anyways, but what I'd like to say is a few things. I've taken notes here as the discussions have been ongoing. And I think the first thing that I want to do is I want to recognize Beth as being very supportive for the town. I think that you think we're on opposite sides of the tables. I think we're actually more in agreement on a lot of things. And for you to come forth and say that this is not your intention was very bold, and I admire that. That's awesome. I'm on record for saying that I want none of it. I said that at the November Board of Selectmen meeting that I oppose it, and I'm adamantly opposed to it, and I still am adamantly opposed to it because I don't see this working well in other communities. The other people I'd like to thank also is Kate and Laura. You both have been very bold with your very sharp and pointed questions, and I think they're very good questions that need to be answered. This is a very radical and wildly unpopular ordinance. It's amazing how many people in this town don't like it, mostly for the overreach. There's really not much of a reason to do this because I think Chris Massey said that it's a problem, solution in search of a problem. And I think that's pretty safe to be said as well. So I heard at the last economic meeting, I heard Joe mention that we need a registration, or at least that was the opinion of the Board of Selectmen. Maybe Shelley can corroborate this, but Joe, you said that a registration process would be desirable. And I say that no, this is a small town. We know our neighbors, even if they are from away. Beth, you've known me for probably the better part of 20 years. And I've had my house for about 12 right now. So even if people are here intermittently, you still know who your neighbors are. I think that a non-town appointed commission would be very valuable if something like that were formed. The reason why I say non-town appointed is so that we can have a voice for the one half of this town that is from away. And I think that one half of this town needs to be heard from. And it's just it's a huge portion of who we are. Most of those homes that you represent, Beth, are people like me. So basically no registration. We know our neighbors. To have a commission that's of various groups of people, I think would probably be a very good solution to it. I say no tabling this. I say we just wipe it right away because I don't see that it's valuable in any way whatsoever. I don't think it should be revisited. I think it should be just disbanded. There are lots of other communities that, for instance, Brownfield, they voted it down in a referendum vote and was never to be heard from again. It's overreach. And for people like me who are doing it right, it's an imposition. To have a registration put in place that can be removed at the whim of the town is overreach. And well, for me not to do what I can rightfully do with my own home is communism. It's not right. So I'm doing it right. I say hands off my house. Let me do what I'm doing. I'm doing it correctly, as are most of the people in this town. And like Brownfield said, go after the people who are doing it wrong. Don't have it encompass all of the people in the entire town that are doing STRs. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, so let's go back to the motion. So is Chris off? Did we lose him?
Well, you're gonna need it, because Shelley, I can't go either, I assume.
Why can't you?
I don't know.
You can, she's a selected, you could.
I'm abstaining.
We have a quorum, so that would still, we can continue. So Laura, the
Yeah, I
motion-
guess I'm not sure after listening to John, is the terminology tabling it correct? Because I was thinking that tabling it basically says this ordinance goes away and we're looking at developing a new, potentially developing a new ordinance, or maybe saying, no, we don't need an ordinance. We just can police this on our own through another committee or whatever is decided.
I think the motion should be that at this time, this ordinance does not, we do not support moving forward with this ordinance, and would ask that it be a committee be formed to look at. I hate making motions, sorry.
To further investigate this issue, and I think that
Yeah,
so the committee should be formed with I don't know, far-reaching or
Well,
diverse
on,
representation.
so the Rangeley Region Economic Committee is appointed by the town. We have to ask to be on this committee, but we are not all from, well, we're not all from Rangeley. So we're not all Rangeley residents. And we do ask for local, we do have people who come on and advise us because we'll have somebody who comes in. We had a lot of people working on parking at, for instance, for downtown parking and how we align parking and parking areas. And we brought in subject matter experts for that specific topic. Same thing with broadband too. We had some IT people who knew more than Laura and I when we were starting, what this meant and what that meant. So we do bring in people to this committee and ask to have like a subgroup, and then we'll bring it back to the committee and give an update by month. And we also work with all of the other town leaders, the assessors from the other communities, which we did collaboratively through broadband, for example. So it might not be the wrong, we might not be the wrong group to do that and to kind of push this forward so we can advise the town. Because I do think Shelley's correct that creating an appointed board from the outside community is just not going to happen. I don't think the comp plan, I think you had to beg and borrow for some people. I don't have a problem with it being us unless somebody else on the committee does, as a start at least, but that's two topics. So we're going through the motion and the solution, so. Chris, thanks.
I'm sorry, my apologies. My battery died, and then when I plugged it back in, the computer chose that moment to update itself, which was not helpful. So I'm sorry, Kate.
Yeah, we're trying to word this motion appropriately.
Okay.
I thought what you said was good, Kate. Did someone write it down?
Shelley's been writing.
Okay, at this point, we do not support moving forward. Committee to be formed to further investigate. That's what I got so far from Kate.
I think that's fine. I mean, obviously adding a few more words in there, but.
So we make a motion, the Rangeley Region Economic Opportunity Committee motions that we do not support the current ordinance, chapter 34, short-term rental as written at this time. And we would recommend that a committee be formed either through an existing town group or outside to address any concerns that the public might have.
I might add what Chris said before to what was it that you said, Chris, about understanding the reasoning behind it?
So yes, and I'm trying to think of how to rephrase that question too, Laura. It's to understand, to understand the question that needs to be addressed. And perhaps there's a better way to put that.
Yeah. How about to understand the underlying issues, to completely understand the underlying issues and formulate a plan, something like
Yes.
that.
Yes. Agreed. Those are good words.
Do we have to read before we vote? Do you have to reread it or can we go?
I say reread it once.
All right, we do not support the current ordinance as written at this time. We recommend a committee to be formed to completely understand. The underlying issue for. To formulate a plan.
Maybe a plan for our community or,
For both short-term renters and neighbors.
and their neighbors.
Yeah.
So whose motion was it actually? Because it was a
Kate's.
combination between two.
All right, you can put,
Read
Kate
it, read it
motions.
one more time, Shelley, one more time.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna write out economic development. Do not support the current ordinance as written at this time. We would recommend, a committee to completely understand the underlying issue to, formulate a plan for both short-term renters and neighbors.
Short-term rental properties and their neighbors, short-term rental properties and their neighbors, right?
yes,
Okay.
I mean, what
Owners,
we're really trying to
yeah.
understand is the
Owners.
issue. We're trying to understand the issue that's underlying this, right?
Yeah,
To understand the issue that. the-
it's a, okay, there's two things, right? First one, we do not support the ordinance, right? That's
True.
number one. Number two is we recommend that a committee be formed to investigate the underlying issues. And determine what if any is a necessary. God, did I just make this one?
Solution.
Second solution, yeah.
And to formulate a solution, just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Don't do the what if any thing.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So reread the second sentence. We recommend a committee be formed to
Yeah.
understand fully the underlying issues and to formulate a plan to address these issues.
And determine. Really understand the underlying issues. All right, so underlying issues and determine a solution or plan.
Sure. Solution's fine.
that works for STR owners and their neighbors. What do you think?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want anything about the data collection in there or no?
No, because that's the
That's part of
plan.
the whole plan, okay.
That would be the plan, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the purpose is we're trying to understand something, so we're gonna need to use data collection.
Mhm.
I mean, to just go back, we asked for data collection, we asked the town of Rangeley, this group. Asked the town of Rangeley to have a compository, this is before you, Joe, this is like 6-7 years ago. When we first started, we got the data from all these community things with all the sales tax data,
Yeah.
it would have been, we asked for an intern. Or to use, some sort of like college resource out of
Right.
Farmington.
Yeah.
To build a database for this data. So that every year we weren't having to go recreate and find the data ourselves and go through the whole process. And, that's just never happened, but was not supported at that time, but that's still something that probably should be done. Okay,
So
so do we have a sec, so I'm motioning all that. Second,
I'll second it.
any other conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Beth is an aye, I'm an aye, and you abstain.
I'm going to abstain.
All right,
So, okay, so just before, no one has any conflict of interest, because that's
Well, I
at the
do,
beginning.
I mean,
Well,
that's why
what's
should I
the,
abstain? I mean, I can abstain and it will still pass. Cause I don't mind abstaining, I realize I have a conflict of interest.
Right, that's all I'm gonna say, it's like
All
that's.
right, so we'll
we
have
look at the
that
beginning,
let's just have it
same
the same.
conflict of interest.
Yeah, I'll say.
Can you vote, but can you put your, is it possible to put her vote in it, but she's abstaining? Does that make any sense, or her opinion?
No, you can't.
No, because it defeats if you're saying you're biased, right? Conflict of interest says you have an inherent bias based on your job
Right.
or you shouldn't be, or
Right.
you should be unbiased and
Each part of the
unopinionated.
discussion, you
Yeah.
know, kind of like one of the selectmen that's on the ordinance committee, she's publicly said right at the beginning that she is part of the discussion, but she is.
But in a public
abstaining.
forum, you could raise your
Yes.
personal vote in
Yes.
a public forum. Okay.
I just think it's important that the selectmen understand, but I think they all do, that Beth is where Beth's feelings are on this, so.
All right, so we're done.
Yep.
New business, is there anything on new business? Our next meeting is gonna be a month from now. And that would be. So the 27th is the Monday right after February vacation break, which we might all be in the tourism world exhausted. So maybe we can go to March 6th. That work? So March 6th at 8 AM.
Works for me.
Do we, this is gonna be presented on Monday night, and will it be voted on? Do we know that? Should we have representation at that meeting?
Have you even gotten it back from the attorney's office?
She's working on it currently.
Can we pull it back so we're not paying lawyer fees?
It's already been there for
Yeah.
over a month.
When is the next meeting?
Monday, next
Monday.
a week from today, which is why we wanted to have this meeting. But our recommendation will be presented at the selectmen's meeting on Monday of next week.
But we have to put it in our minutes and then. present the
Right,
minutes.
so
Is that
yeah,
what we're gonna plan
if you'd
on
like it to be presented, if it can get,
We would like it to be presented to the selectmen on Monday, that's the whole reason we're making our recommendation that it's in their back package, right?
What's up?
It will be in their your package by the end of this week to go into Monday's
We
meeting.
have to approve meetings from in the next meeting.
so if your intent is to have it there Monday, make a motion that
We make a motion that our
Recommend
recommendation is presented to the selectmen on Monday, February 6th. Can I get a second?
And
Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay,
And can I say one thing?
yeah,
I do think we need to show up at that meeting, guys. I'm gonna get people at that meeting. I'm back at it. I just needed a little bit of a break. But this is being touted that our community wants this. I've been told by multiple people, I don't agree with that statement. So that means we have to show them our community doesn't. And the people that are, I think people need to show up if you don't want this on Monday. And say, just because the squeaky wheel should not get the grease right now, and I believe that maybe is what's happening, so, but I don't mean mad, I don't mean angry, we just need to show up and say, we don't support it. So I'm gonna ask everyone from my original committee to show up, which is hard, they're business owners, they're busy, I'm gonna ask them to show up, and I think, anyone that does not support this document, show up. Chris, if you can get Saddleback people, show up. Chamber of Commerce, all we do is talk about our meetings, how to, make this community the best we can. We're adding events, we're getting people here. They have to show up too. It sucks, to go to a night meeting, but if we don't want a few people making the decisions, we're gonna have to show up, so. I apologize for starting this a year ago.
I'll be happy to be there. That's fine.
Yep, and we can Zoom to those as well, correct? Everyone can Zoom.
Laura, are you somewhere warm today?
No, I'm in Boston.
We're getting January. Did you hear that? This
Oh.
weekend? Oh my God. We got too lucky. We were getting complacent.
getting-
so
we
we
were
had to
getting
throw in a
complacent.
20 below. So I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:35 AM.
I second.
Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much, everyone.
Off to work.
Bye.